There is a road safety conundrum, characterised by the fact that for many years the trend in road fatalities and injuries were progressively better and better and better until last year and early this year. So there seems to be, and there is, the stats demonstrated, a change. And of course, like any trend, unless the underlying conditions are changed, then that trend will continue in the same direction. I think that's the kind of an iron rule. So really the question I'm asking is, where did we go wrong as a country, as the different institutions involved in road safety? In this short video, I'm just taking a helicopter view with all of the different interests involved and seeing what conclusions can be reasonably drawn, and more importantly, what needs to change. The question I ask myself when I look at the overall situation regarding road safety is a very simple question based on who's in charge. And I have to say that based on long experience in the Garda Síochána and subsequently, I think everyone is in charge and therefore no one is in charge. That is not to say that the different entities involved aren't really concerned about the issue of road safety, don't intend to do the best they can, but the basic overall structure just simply doesn't work because it is a case of too many cooks. It is obvious that there is a case of escalating road casualties, and we have the figures that demonstrate that for last year and this year. So let's take that as a given. And when we look at the ingredients that go into making the situation better, we know historically and from research as well established that enforcement is a key part of that equation. Probably the key part of the equation because it's the front-facing part of the state dealing with aberrational driving and aberrational behaviour. Engineering is extraordinarily important as well. Probably the safest roads in the country are also the roads or the motorways on which cars and vehicles travel at the fastest. And the facts again underline that. Education and awareness is incredibly important because it's getting the message out there. But without strong, credible, logical, fair enforcement, education is likely to fall on deaf ears. Naturally, the issue of public support is incredibly important as well because there is a view, and in some cases justifiable, that some of the detection strategy at the moment is about a simple proposition like shooting fish in a barrel, i.e. that it doesn't necessarily have a direct road safety bearing. And that's something that should be debated. But the key thing is, and I think we all recognize it, is the deterrence factor when the state is about its business in a way that is legal and fair. And that means, of course, the visibility for the Garda, and we'll return to that in a short while. We do know that the killers involved are speed, and obviously dangerous driving, impaired driving, either through drugs or alcohol, the non-wearing of seatbelts, the use of mobile phones, and personal behaviour. And that's by all of us who use the roads, either as drivers or pedestrians or cyclists or motorcyclists, and of course how we react to this part of the equation, drugs and alcohol, how it impairs our ability. And not wearing seatbelts and mobile phones, the killer events and personal behaviour is incredibly important in that regard. Nobody would dispute that. Now, it's obviously clear as day that the Garda Síochána is responsible for enforcement, and that's achieved through two branches of the Garda Síochána, the Road Policing Units, formerly called the Traffic Corps, and normal uniform Garda units. Now, it is a plain fact that the matter is that the Garda Síochána is under tremendous pressure resource-wise, and I do not blame the frontline officers for the lack of visibility or the lack of enforcement. I think the responsibility for that rests elsewhere. But the clear fact of the matter is that under the current scheme of things, the Garda Síochána is not able to produce a credible deterrent effect, the deterrent effect that I referred to above, which is incredibly important in changing the personal behaviour of road users. Now, it is a fact that two government departments have overlapping responsibility in the area of road safety. The Department of Justice would see itself, and I think rightly so, as responsible for the Garda Síochána in terms of financing and money. And also they're the people who sign off on privatised speed cameras. These are the GoSafe vans that we see around the country. We'll return to that in a minute as a strategy. And of course, the Garda Síochána are the people who operate that system under contract. The other big department is the Department of Transport, and the Department of Transport has particular responsibility in relation to road safety, but only as an adjunct to the many other things that happen in the Department of Transport, principally the public mind associated with the implementation of changes in the speed limit laws and other issues related to that, but principally about the speed limiting thing. But these two departments, Transport and Justice, historically have found themselves at odds when it came to the issue of road safety, because two ministers, two different portfolios, a very busy Department of Justice, a very busy Department of Transport. By the way, local authorities also play a significant role in relation to road safety, because they have the job of implementing the speed legislation that's introduced at a national level and introducing that by way of local regulation to apply on the local roads. So there are many different interests at work in that area as well. Two big departments, and with essentially with other entities involved as well. And another agency to note is obviously the Road Safety Authority, or the RSA, which deals with a lot of necessary administrative work in relation to licensing and all of that issues that flow from that. But of course, it doesn't have any enforcement ability, and it has to operate in conjunction with the other interests involved. It is largely now associated in the public mind with publicity and appeals, and it is operating directly back to the Department of Transport in terms of a lead department. It is an important conduit for information, but of course none of this makes sense unless it is part of an overall cohesive strategy. Back to my initial point, who's in charge? And is it everyone and no one? From my own personal experience, I know the issue of deterrence is enormously important. And that's based on one very simple premises, that all of us, if we feel there is a prospect of us being, to use the euphemism, being caught, we are less likely to engage in behavior that's inappropriate to driving and to road safety. But that has, on the dial of our mind, that has to move from the issue of the possibility of being detected to the probability. And the probability at the moment is extremely low. Now, I'm also going to talk very briefly about the privatized speed vans that are, one sees around the country in many hundreds of locations in different parts of the country. It is always referred to as the way in which speeding is detected. Now, this is a very inflexible system. Where those vans are based has no direct relevance to the current trends in road fatalities or road injuries. It's based on an outmoded concept that they were placed at places where it was most likely that road fatalities would occur. That is simply not the case anymore. They are based simply in a rigid system by contract, which is signed by the Minister for Justice and the Commissioner, and they are not allowed to go to the areas of greatest need for speed detection purposes. For instance, and just to take as an example, if County A has an emerging trend in bad driver behaviour, the speed resources there in those vans cannot be moved into that area except to the predetermined spots. It is crazily inflexible. It doesn't work, and it's costing about €12 million a year to operate. But what is most important is the technical capacity of speed detection was managed very efficiently by the Garda Síochána for many years when a decision was taken to privatise that outcome. Now, if the privatization resulted in fast, flexible response to problems, We know that from an enforcement point of view, the enforcement component can't be in all places at all times. And certainly the Garda Síochána is under extreme problems in terms of its own resourcing. But essentially, any detection strategy is based on prioritizing your resources to a particular area and having the ability to move them around. That is not possible under the current system, and the complex interests involved between the two departments and the key agencies simply isn't capable of delivering that. So to answer the question at the top is who is in charge, I think it's pretty evident that there's nobody in overall charge. There are many competing interests, sometimes competing. It's not they don't mean to get the job done in the interest of the public, but clearly it is long past time where there should be a supremo or a lead that can call all of the shots in relation to the key factors that influence safety on our roads. And those key ingredients are made up very simply of the enforcement strategy, the engineering in terms of the safety of the roads, the education and awareness that obviously comes to legitimize and explain the programs, maintaining public support, but at the same time ensuring that there is credible deterrence from the inappropriate personal behaviour in terms of the offences and otherwise. This trend that's there at the moment will likely continue unless there is a singularity of political response that puts this whole area of road safety under one particular organisation that has the overall capacity and direction to handle all of the different parts of it, dealing with the ingredients that we have mentioned here. Do hope that changes. I have no great expectation that it will.